Welcome to Rotten Potatoes with Bryce.
And Forrest. And we're here to ruin your favorite TV shows, movies, and video games.
This week, we are going to ruin Shadow and Bone, Netflix original TV show series. And, a good chunk. It's episode 13 of our podcast. Sorry.
Yep.
Normally, we like to do like a beginning, and if it's a long episode, or a long series, we'll do like a middle and an end.
Yeah.
But Netflix is very known for just dumping the whole thing. So we decided to binge it for you and watch all 8 episodes. And we'll give you some spoilers, some rundowns, and see what you guys like.
Yep.
So in the first episode, you have them, I think they're going to the void. And they're in the ship. Or Alina and Mal are in the ship. But where is Jasper?
So Jesper and Brecker and all them are on the other side of the void, and they're in like a different area that you can't get to without passing the void. Which, first of all, the void is this giant, blacked out, like hazy area. It's all just monsters and darkness, right? So you don't know, it's very mysterious, and people don't know what it is exactly, and they just know that if you go through there, that death is waiting for you a lot of the times, and like light draws things near to you while you're in there, light and sound. So pretty scary.
And the bad thing, so it's like it's Ravka. And so you have West Ravka and East Ravka. So the void it literally cuts the nation in half. And you could make the trek above the void because it's like a diamond, but then you're in Fjerda, which is like absolutely hates Radka. Or you can go south and you go to the Shoe, which absolutely hate Radka or Ravka. And so it's like a big issue that going back and forth with those, the void really cuts out cuts that out, so they can't do that. And so
I'll say in the beginning, what was really interesting to me was that I saw the ship and I immediately thought, oh, it's like water through there for some reason because they're on a ship, but it was actually they're on like skids and they're going across the land through the void and as a boat, which is interesting that they decided to go with a ship like model instead of something else, maybe.
See, and that's what I was asking when we were watching it. I was like, have you watched Monster Hunters? And for the sole purpose, and that was the first thing I clicked. So in Monster Hunters, that you're in like this big ocean of desert, and they're sitting there sailing ships through this desert. So I'm like, this is exactly what that is. But obviously, like, it didn't pull from it or take from it. But it was like, especially like it wasn't like the ship actually sailed. It was like on the skids, which made it like even more like, why would you do that type deal? Like there could easily be other things that could be taken through. And so the void is this big bad thing, and they countless people through it all the time, and like they expect to lose like half their forces, which is nuts. Like I don't know how that big of a population where you're like, all right, it's kind of like Dazed and Confused where he's like 50 men will go, 25 will return. Like that's exactly how it's like it's nuts to like, but in order to survive they have to go through that void, and just to be able to make it. And so so when we first start on, that ship's going through, and like we really don't know. We know that there's the blue light. You're not supposed to light the lanterns. You're just going through. And then these like gargoyle, vampire, bat, I don't know what you would necessarily call them. I mean, they kind of look like bats, but they kind of, they don't have the face of like a
it's kind of like a flying gargoyle demon,
which like can't leave the void. Like they're inside the void, and so they're attracted to lights and all that stuff. And so that blue lantern goes out that supposedly the demons can't find. And then some guy's like, oh, I'm just gonna light this lamp that someone told me not to light.
Yeah.
And then all hell breaks loose.
what's weird is like they show up to this camp and get ready to cross this void that is just this daunting thing that shows up. You know, it's strange that they're immediately tossed into it. I know that like things like this would happen. They're in the army, you know, and so like armies get thrown into weird situations all the time and like have to just deal with the situation. But I I thought it was strange that she like got her entire unit killed on the first episode because it was her fault they were even there and they all died because she made them be there. Because
Yeah.
in the beginning, Mal has to go on the ship to the void, and they're afraid that like he's gonna die and all this bad stuff's gonna happen. And so she burns some maps in order to get herself on the ship and to be able to go with him, and drags her unit along on accident, and it goes south real fast. So
Yeah. Yes. And so yeah, the gargoyles come in, they start, taking out everybody, and then Mal gets killed. I'm like, this is like Game of Thrones. Like I can't be attached to
yeah,
anybody because like you learn
right.
about Mal, and you're like, all right, he's a cool guy. Like he's definitely cool. There's a
Yeah.
few other guys that I don't even remember now, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like they're like, oh yeah, they're pretty cool, and like we know who they are. They built a story like in the first like 10, 15 minutes of the
Yeah.
episode. So you're sitting there attached, and you just get to see them like all getting slaughtered in front of you. You're like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Like
Right. And
this
it
is like
felt
the opening.
and it really felt like they like built like a strong enough connection to those people in the beginning to where it was like, oh my gosh, they're actually killing these people off that like actually have some relevance and like emotional connection to this character, and like they were able to introduce that in that like 15-minute window maybe or 30-minute window, and then
Yeah.
just completely kill them all off and they're just gone. Which also she never really looks back on that and reflects like that. At one point she cries, but like it's never brought up again that all of her friends are dead. Right? It's
Yeah.
just she just moves on with her life, and I'm like, you don't care, do you? Okay, that's interesting. All right. New life. Here we go.
Yeah. And like she saves him because she's actually a Grisha. She's a sun summoner, so she like can harness the sun and all that stuff through
Mhm.
through her. And so like as she's trying to save Mal, she gets picked up, and then that's when like her like force gets unleashed, even though like she never knew like she had that before. And then just like slaughters all the ones that are nearby,
Right.
and then like somehow they like crawl out and make it out of the void. Which I was thinking they were pretty far in
Yeah.
on ship, so to walk back
Yeah.
would be, you know what I mean, kind of a little bit
Right.
weird, a little bit crazy, but they made it back from the void. And then like that all breaks loose because we have this Avatar, the Last Airbender that just appeared. Technically, is what that
Right.
was what's running through my head. So the Sun
Hmm.
Summoner is only one person per like lifetime type deal, and there hasn't been one for 300 years. Yada yada yada. Airbender life,
Right. Right.
story and all that stuff. And so then like everyone's after her. Like the Fjord's after her because she's a witch. The Ravka is after her because she can help the void out. You have I guess the shoe really don't care about her. We don't really. I mean, she's the only shoe that we
The
even see.
yeah, the shoe doesn't get mentioned much in this. Like it does. Like people are like, "Oh, your shoe," like, because she's also shoe, and was an orphan
Yeah,
with Mal, and that's where they grew up. Um, but like also like Grisha are people that have powers like air, like you would find in the
they're
Airbender.
like the touched in the nevers, but way better.
Right. Yeah. So like you just have different types of people. Like in the Airbender, you would have fire, earth, wind,
Yeah, the
and
Fire Nation
water.
attacked.
Yeah. So yeah. But in this one, you would have a different set of people. There's like 8 or 9 different sets of people in this one too. So
Yeah, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that. And so
yeah.
they find her. The military finds her, and they want to take her back to what's called the Little Palace, which is like, see, like once they started doing the Little Palace, like it didn't really like take effect for me until they like met the king. But it's the Tsar, which is like Russia. So this is literally
Yeah.
like, I assume Russia, and then like the Fjord, or like I would say either German or English. They had a sail to go back, so I assume it's like England, like the Vikings of England. And then the Shu are just the
Yeah.
Chinese order, and then the Zilo or Zilo, whoever Inj is, Inj, she's a
Inej. Yeah.
she's something else, but I assume that's like the Indian side too as well. So it's kind of cool that like it's like kind of history, but like not history. So like it's definitely like the
Connections, yeah.
Victorian times,
Right.
where not everything's modern, but like it still has like the different regions that would have actually been there,
Mm-hmm.
during that time. So I think that's very very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they go back to the little palace, which is like supposedly impregnable, but they cross the void back, right, to get to the little palace.
No, I think they're on that side and they go to the little palace at that point. On the
Or
other
no, wait, I
side,
think they go through Frida because remember the fjord attacker.
yeah, I think they had to go through a small area there that like they got attacked, and he had to the
So
the
at that
king
point,
or whatever. Yeah,
we meet
not king,
General
but yeah,
Cregan or
General
Kerrigan.
Kerrigan. Yep.
We meet General Kerrigan, and like so they're like on horseback. Like she has this like band of military like escorting her through, so like no one attacks. And then the fjord come in and just slaughter them all. And the cool
Yeah,
thing is about
yeah,
like the fjord is that they are very anti-magic. Um, anything to do with magic is very like you're burned at the stake. Like it's very
right,
like Viking is what I think. You know what I mean? Like it reminds me of like that Christianity Viking where all those people got burned at the stake type deal.
right. It's just
Um,
anything different that's not what we do as
usually, yeah,
humans.
normal.
Not okay. Yeah,
And so they take on this caravan that has Grisha in it. You know what I mean? Like have all these superhumans and have all these like crazy good military people, and they
right.
just get slaughtered by these humans, these normal, just
Yep.
regular humans. And then General Cregan comes out of absolutely nowhere because supposedly he was at the little palace, right?
No, because he was in the encampment when they left, and then for some reason he didn't go with them. I don't know what that was all about, but
But then he
maybe he
shows up
was. I
and
don't know. He just wasn't there. I know that much.
yeah,
So
he shows up and then he uses his own Grisha powers, um, and literally mowed them all down in like a
yeah,
flick of a hand.
he like summoned darkness and created a blade that cut some dude completely in half. So
Also, they took pieces from Naruto as well with their little hand gestures that they like slap,
oh yeah, a
twist,
little
and
bit. Yeah,
I was thinking like Naruto, Airbender, and so like, that's also like another big thing which I thought was cool. Like their hands have to touch in order for them to create. It's almost like Full Metal Alchemist, like with like um, I know like most of them have to do the transmutation circle, but like for Al, like he can do it with his hands and stuff like that. Um, and so that's what the weird, cool uniqueness is.
hmm
But anyways, kills the fjord. And they make it back to the little palace, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's definitely Russian, like type of architecture. Um, and I really enjoyed the part where like they go to like the Grisha training area, and like all of them are out there
right.
um, training, and you can see the different types of Grisha that are out there. Um, and then but really like Alana, right? Alana is like the key.
Alina,
Elena,
Alina.
Elena. I don't
Yeah.
know Russian names. My bad. Starkov. Um, is like the key to all of it. So like
Right.
General Cregan wants her. Um, the wannabe president on West Ravka wants her, because he's trying to, help his side with the void. And then you have the fjord that wants her too as well. And so it's like literally like all going on. And then was it the west side of Ravka hires Kaz?
So yeah, so they hire Brecker and Jesper to well, they take on the job because there's like a gangster over there that wants to bring the summoner back and to probably use her for whatever gangster related purposes he needs. But basically it's for like this huge amount of like a million whatever their currency is, and so they got there in time to have the job be given to them. They had to find somebody called a heart render, which can control like people's hearts and can like they have to
You can
speak the
detect the
truth
heart rates
whenever
and all
they
that stuff.
talk and stuff, and it's strange. But basically, like the one person that made it out of that crew to that side of the void was being interrogated by them to figure out if it was true, what information he had, etc. And so they learned that it is true. She is a sun summoner, and they have to figure out where she is and go get her, and a way to do that. And they get hired, and then they take off on their journey to go do that as well. So,
So I'm sorry
yeah.
I'm all over the place as well. It's just that we watched 8 episodes all at once, and so it's just I'm trying to piece things together because it's the way that it's written. It's very like this is going on, and then it
Yeah.
fast tracks that way, and then faster. So I'm
Yeah,
just doing what the movie
there's
does.
multiple parts of the story because as soon as Alina leaves the encampment to go to Little Palace, Mal is started on this journey to find a way to her, and they're writing letters back and forth, and they're trying to contact each
Oh
other
yeah,
and
man,
make
yeah.
sure they're uh, knowing what's going on with each other. And so Mal finds out that he wants to go hunt down this mythical creature that she
The Great Elk.
has some kind of purpose to help the army and the nation, and would definitely get him to see Alina. So he's on a journey doing that while all this other stuff's going on. So
Yeah, and then NJ. I don't know if she is a master or if she's just like, or if all of her people are like that
so
or what. But
it's
I love her.
strange, right? Like, yeah, she's a really cool character, and I think Jesper's a really cool character too because
Yes.
I almost think both of them are like in some way like manipulative of some kind of power because they're both masters of their trades, but in a way
Yeah.
that's almost too good at what they do to just be normal. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
Jesper can use a gun like no one you've ever seen, right? He can hit things that aren't even in front of him and figure out what angle to hit things at, and it's crazy.
He's
Uh,
like the McCree.
yeah, he's like McCree. Um, and then Inej can like show up and disappear whenever she wants, and
Batman.
she's got blades, and it's yeah. But yeah, they're both very very talented individuals with crazy powers that we're still not sure are just natural or they worked really hard to get those, but they're very talented individuals for sure.
Yeah. And then you also have Brecker, who is like not having any superpowers and has a bum leg, but yet always comes in and saves the day.
Yeah.
Literally, like at any scene and all that stuff. Like he's the one. Like he's like a guy, somewhat like a mastermind because he's always got like a plan cooking.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like Brecker probably the most out of that crew. Like Inej, I like her just because she's badass, and Jesper. Like I mean, I like all of them actually. I mean, all of them are
It's a pretty
great.
cool
All
little
of them are
crew.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so they, the Million Krieger, I think it's our Keurig. It's like CKRUG, Keurig, whatever their currency is. Yeah, like you said, whatever their currency is.
Yeah.
They get 1 million, which is sounds like a boatload because they're all talking about retirement and all that stuff and
Right.
everything after this. Because I assumed the way that they were talking, like they're like thieves and runners normally. Like I think Brecker like finds stupid stuff, and Inej and Jesper is like, all right, like we're
Yeah.
not doing anything, let's go. Um, and so it's a pretty solid crew. I do like them a lot. Um, and then so they're trying to figure out how to get across the fold or the void, um, to be able to get to the little palace. And then then it cuts back to um, Alina, and she gets presented to the king and all that stuff. Which the cool part was like when she was getting ready to get presented to the king was the tailor. I think the tailor is
Mm-hmm.
like one of my most favorite Grishas. Um, Actually, they all are. I really just love this TV show series. Like, you guys need to watch it. The Grisha Taylor. So what she can do, she can't technically like heal, but she can at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
She can fix scars, change faces, add like makeup and lipstick. But like before all that was a real thing. So like she can use like roses that are red and like transfer the color over to
Yeah.
you. Um,
It's
she
almost
can
more of like a body augmentation than healing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So like if something's going on, I think she can like I don't know, not stop the problem but slow it down and
Yeah,
helping.
she can adjust like your body to the way you want it to look or change your face or just make you the way you want to look to others, I suppose.
Yeah. And so, and she's supposedly just as rare, which I think we only know one Grisha that's a tailor.
Yeah, so far, I believe so.
Um, well, I'll bring up that point later too, because I think there's other stuff going on. So yeah, so she's a tailor, and she was handpicked just for the queen, so the queen can always look young, which I thought was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And so they bring and get Alina because Alina's a soldier, so she's dirty, she's nasty. I mean, this is before running waters everywhere, so she's not bathed or
Mm-hmm.
or anything. And
Yep.
so they get her looking pretty. I did like the whole fact that you know the guy was like change her from Shu, like make her more
Yeah.
Ravka, and she was like, no, I want to stay Shu, and they allowed it, which was pretty awesome. And then you go and you see the queen, and the queen's not even pretty. Like she's pretty old and ugly, so the tailor isn't doing that good of a job. Well, I thought she was gonna be this young, beautiful girl, but I mean she was the normal age that she probably should be
Right.
and whatnot. But I thought it was she was supposed to look infinitely young just because what the tailor does and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so she gets presented, and for some reason, Kirigan can exploit her powers. So
He's like an amplifier for other
yeah,
powers of Grisha.
yeah, because Alina cannot she didn't know how she did it. She literally did it to save Mal's life the first time. And so when they're getting presented to the king, queen, the czar, Kirigan goes up to her, touches her, and is able to bring out the light. And so that's kind of the first time really the world sees the Sun Summoner, because really they only saw it on the ship, and then everything else was rumor. Which at that point it very reminded me of communist Russia, because they go out, they're like, oh, you hear the Sun Summoner? Oh, that's just another lie they're trying to peddle and all this stuff. And them, and just felt like the USSR type deal, and where the Tsar family was and all that stuff. So just very Russian-esque history, which is kind of cool, thrown on there. And then go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that they had to test her to see if she was actually Grisha, and how she didn't get tested earlier. And we learned later that she hid from the testing with Mal because she didn't want to leave Mal. And then when they finally got brought in there to have to do it, she cut her hand in order to get away from them finding out that she was Grisha, that she had powers. And then we also couldn't get Mal tested at the time because he had a hurt hand, it was broken or something. So you learn that they get tested as children to see if they're Grisha or not, and that's when they go to the little palace to train and become full Grisha.
Which I thought was unique, because I'm curious of how they test it. And that's another Full Metal Alchemist type deal, because they go out and they train. They get their tests done before they can work for the military, which is very Full Metal Alchemist type deal. But I don't know how they were able to test them to be oh, you're a heart render, or oh,
right, yeah. I wonder if they just it's a test that's just hey, you're Grisha. It's just at that point you go to the little palace and figure out what you do, maybe.
And they might push him into a fight or flight response, because that's how she was able to get her get her Sun Summoner to come out. So maybe that's what they do, is they torture him or something. I don't know. It'd been really cool to be able to see a flashback of that, because they do flashbacks during the show. So it would have been nice to see a flashback of someone else to see whether they're Grisha or not. Yeah, and then
so they though. Go ahead. Yeah.
No.
Okay, well, one thing that was weird was in the little palace, there is no different aged people that are Grisha. It's just this random group of people that are in their 20s to 30s Grisha. Yeah. So I don't know if the children get taken somewhere else to be taught what's going on and who they are and what powers they have, but there are no other aged people there. It's just all this army aged people doing this stuff. So
because even like the master, that big guy. I mean, he wasn't that much older, if anything. I mean, he was about that age.
Yeah. So I thought it was kind of a weird thing. It's just a little touch here.
Which maybe the Grisha don't age, but they can still die.
I
Because
they mentioned something about like how like they can live longer or something with like help from other Grisha, kinda. But I don't. Yeah, only certain people can live
especially if you had
forever.
a healer should be able to.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then they go to the palace, or they go to not the palace, but they go to like the library. And then that's when she finds out like the great stag is hers, because she's having like all these like weird flashbacks that she's going to this great stag, that has like this really cool set of horns that, I don't know, it's almost like a circle of horns, and it's the alpha of all stags and all that stuff. And supposedly there's what, 4 animals or 5 animals
Looks like
that
it,
are
yeah.
mythical. It's like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where it's literally like that, because that's what I was thinking of when they were talking about the stags and all that stuff. All those special creatures are in Assassin's Creed as special creatures of like, so I don't know if that's um like a Viking type lore and all that stuff, where
Could
there's,
be.
those mythical creatures that are out there.
Yeah.
And so they find out the stag is honed to herd, and essentially like the Grisha, whatever they have dreams about is like their spirit animal in a way. So if they kill it and then meld it into their body, they become like super Grisha, so they can like be like the most powerful in that type that they are. So if they're a Heartrender, a healer, tailor, whatever it may be, that's like they're specialized and perfect in it if they take on their mythical creature. And so they find that, and they find the drawings in her notebook, and so Cregan decides to post it everywhere, trying to get this stag to be found. And that's where Mal sees her drawings. It's like, oh, that's Alina's drawings. Like, I know her handwriting and I know her. And so he knew that was going to get her back. And so he goes out. And I think he, like, even though like the Grisha are like, they're definitely like, they're Inferni, like they have like magical, like elemental powers.
Right.
There has to be like a human Grisha. You know what I mean? Like Inji, or in whatever, Jesper, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
and then because you have Mal, who's like a master tracker, like
Right.
he's better than any of the other trackers that are out there. Which, I think there's like special non-elemental.
It really feels like it.
They're just too good, like you said. They're just too good at their trait.
Right. Right.
Which I enjoy that, quite a bit.
Which in turn allows him to find that stag. He finally tracked it down. He had to almost die for it, and all of his friends are now dead. So we're losing a lot of people, and then the next scene we tend to not care about them anymore. He seemed a little more hurt about it. He was really connected to those guys, and they sacrificed themselves to go out there and help him, and they got ambushed by the Vikings. And
which the Gatling gun that they just bring out for one guy was like, what?
Yeah, they tore him up. But it's so it's really sad. That part really got me, because it was like, oh man, these guys they died for him, and he's doing this all for this girl, and his friends are dead, and it just sucks.
Yeah, because I think they all were very close, because I think the TV show speeds up a lot of things. Like I think that was like months that they went and tracked the stag, and so I think it was just those 3 doing this tracking. And so they were super close and all that stuff. And I was really sad when the guy that went to go pee, I was really sad when he died. That sucked.
Well, they even stopped him from leaving and deserting the army in the beginning to like keep him from being hanged and killed, and then they sacrificed themselves later in turn for that. And it's like, oh man, like, right in the feels, Yeah.
And so while he's back on his way into the encampment, the lady of the brothel, what's her name?
I don't know.
She is trying to get Inji back because she owned her. The White Rose, the lady, the owner of the White Rose, trying to get her back because she was a slave and Brecker bought her, but like is paying on it.
Right.
And so NG, or the White Rose lady, said, if you kill this other human trafficker, I'll go ahead and all your debts are paid. Don't worry about it. And so, as on her way to do that, Brecker catches her, realizes that she's trying to do that, so then it screws Brecker over, and so she can get the money. And so you find out that this person is called the Conductor, which is probably like one of the dopest parts in the whole show. I think he's pretty cool.
Really
just
cool.
I don't know. I just like him a lot. He's
cool character.
He's pretty cool. And so the reason why they call him the Conductor is because he is the only one that can make it between there and the void with everyone alive every single time.
Yeah.
In fact, he carves in his arm every single time that he makes it through, which I'm pretty sure it was like 25 or 30 times.
A lot, yeah.
And so, tells Jesper to get the alabaster coal, tells Brecker to get the goat. And then NG, I don't remember what he told her to get. It was something he was like, you can't get the cheap stuff. You have to get the real stuff. I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember. But yeah.
Which I don't understand what the goat, like, it was just in case, like, they can throw it out, the demons would go after it, or?
I don't know, because at some point he says it's just to calm you down or something, So.
And I didn't know if it was like counterweight and all that stuff too. If like it meant like.
Yeah. They need an extra weight spot.
Yeah, and so then they just get this like, just the head of the engine. I don't even know what you call that.
Yeah, it's
that
basically
piece of
like
train.
It's basically a train, and it's like one piece, so that
it's the front piece that holds the coal, or that holds the engine and the steam and all that stuff.
But it's basically like a train track that goes across it. So that's how they get through it, and it's made of metal. So obviously, metal is a thing in this universe, and I mean they have guns as well too. But like, why aren't they using them for the ships?
Well, you know what I also thought is, why didn't they just dig under the void? Like, why didn't they just tunnel through it?
I think they said something about that, but I don't remember. It was very quickly said, and like it just didn't work or something. Because somebody said, "Oh, why didn't they just tunnel under it or something?" And it just, yeah, which means it's protruding through the ground as well somehow. So
yeah, but yeah, so yeah, and then the train. Actually, now that you say that, pretty much everything is wood or stone, isn't it? I haven't really seen a whole lot, because most of them they use the arrows and bows.
Which it could be just because they're like, oh, the lighter the material, the faster we'll go across. I don't know if that's maybe why, but the train seems like a much better idea in theory, as long as you're quiet and don't have a light on it. But who knows? Maybe it's not really that practical compared to the boats. But
well, and it's a small, I think, to have a big enough train to haul people, it would have probably gotten demolished. But like the fact that, because there's that leg in the race where there's no tracks, and he has to get the skids, and he has to ramp up, and he says we'll get attacked here soon because there's a nest.
Right.
Because he goes full engine until he hits the other set of the tracks. And so I think really it's not all that practical, especially if they would have to have a lot of horsepower to take several like cabs with them. But it's definitely the funniest part. And so they screwed up a few times and caused issues. And so the demons were able to find him and start picking apart. And then that's when you see Jesper the first time do his thing. And he like slaughters all of them with a 6-shooter. I mean, doesn't even see him, just pop, 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 pop.
Right, this is a completely concealed thing. It's all metal. You can't see anything around him. They're just hitting it from the outside, starting to tear things open, but he's just taking them out like crazy. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think he kills like 6 with 6 bullets. Like he really just kills them all, and then they make it through, and they barely make it to the other side. And then so the Conductor also knows the Heartrender that's on the other side. And so they have a meeting to set up, and they go to the Heartrender, which just every time they introduce a Grisha, I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. This is cool. This is cool. Like, going through all that. And then they come out and they find out the Fjorda or Fjorden, whatever you want to call them, takes her. And they're kind of screwed at that point. And so now they're devising this whole plan on how to get into this impregnable fortress called the Little Palace. And then at that point, we go back to Alina, and she's like trained essentially. Like she meets Bagra, which Bagra is so cool, and it reminds me of Bagra from the Dark Crystal, who she's like the all-seeing. And she's Bagra is the one that controls the land, and Bagra is the all-knowing. Bagra is the god, and so she almost has the same role here in Shadow and Bone. I mean, because she, she brings out the powers of Lena. She knows what she's doing. She's, training her and making her become who she really needs to become.
Right.
So she's sitting there going through all that. She writes letters to Mal every day, but hasn't heard back from him. And then you go over to Mal, and Mal's writing letters to her all the time, and you never hear back from them.
Right.
So I was like, there's got to be something going on. I thought it was Kerrigan that was screwing with everything.
I think it was. Like they weren't letting any letters go out either way, but I think that's probably part of just the way that whole thing works. Like I don't think that army was tending to let a lot of letters out anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, not surprised there. So.
And as we're going through this, we realize that. What was I gonna say? Letters going out. I don't know what I was gonna say. I mean, she's getting more educated, and when we learn what the void is, the fold, whatever you want to call it, the void, the fold. And it was through the black. What was his name?
The Black
Heretic.
It's a cool name. Bad guy. Cool name.
So the cool thing is that you learn this, and they're called little sciences. So the Inferni, the Heartrenders, they all do little sciences. So I assume like they're not like bridging and doing their whole, what their potential is up to. And like I guess way back when the fold was first built or made or whatever you want to call it, you had this black heretic guy was sitting there experimenting and trying to make the little science into big science, and screwed up, and then ended up creating the void and killing everybody in it. And that's what separated from west to east Ravka. And that's like a couple hundred years ago.
Right. And like all the monsters that are in the fold are all the people that were there when it happened, and they turned into these creatures that are now roaming this area, which is crazy.
Yeah.
All those people, women, children, just gone. Nuts.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And then you have, so she learns about all that. She learns about the void. The black heretic, who then just disappears, from everything. And then you go in and you find out that the conductor made some kind of deal with West Ravka's president. You don't know exactly what. But that was kind of like a small type deal. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it really wasn't like it was like I noticed it, but I didn't really like pick up on like what he was doing or what was going on.
Right.
Which is definitely, because they definitely made it a point. So you're like trying to figure out like, I don't know why they made it a point.
Yeah.
And then everything comes down to the carnival that started for the Sun Summoner. So essentially at that time, the three storylines that are going on kind of meet into one. So Mel finally gets to the little palace to like inform them that they found the great stag. Brecker and the crew finally made it to the palace to kidnap Alina.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alina is doing her show stuff, which I thought was kind of cool that like you had these kind of like these roots. They all came into like one tree and kind of combined the story but kept it separate.
Yeah. Right, like they did a really good job of like continuing and growing the storylines, and then actually like bringing them all together and weaving them together in a way that like it all flowed correctly and didn't just butt heads or like cut off a storyline or do this or do that. And it was done really well. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. And then like as Mel gets there, all of a sudden Bagra's little assassin Grisha comes out of play. And you're like, man, I thought Bagra was cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why would she like help the Sun Summoner do all the stuff just to try to silence the messengers?
Mm-hmm.
And then Mel gets lured in and finds his friend just sitting there dead. And like
Mm-hmm.
he takes a lot of stuff to heart, which I think is kind of cool. Cause like
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah, anytime anyone dies, like he's like, fuck.
He like really feels it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Alina is just kind of like, meh, somebody's dead. It's okay, I guess. I'm just gonna move on.
Yeah, because a lot of
Yeah.
people die under her watch. And she
Yeah.
just
Well, I don't even think
doesn't
she
care.
ever realized that. Like, okay, so also the conductor had been speaking to the general on the other side of the fold and was secretly becoming an assassin instead of a kidnapper, and attempted to kill the Sun Summoner, which happened to be one of Alina's friends that she made there, that the tailor had made her look like Alina.
Like a body double.
Right. It's yeah. So like, and then she ends up dying. Her neck gets cut, and yeah, she just dies there. And she's like, "Don't let me die with this wrong face on," you know. And so the tailor fixes her face, and but then the conductor gets caught and gets
I
killed
got
eventually.
caught hard.
Yeah, he got caught real easy. Not a
Which
great
that was
assassin.
also cool. The Durast, Grisha, the fabricators, the fact that like they were able to make like a secret door and the thing. That's yeah, I like the fabricators a lot too. I literally like all the Grisha. Like there's not like a Grisha I'm like, you're kind of worthless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
And I mean, there's like some basic powered ones in there, like the Inferni and all those. But like, it's cool they have like very specific ones also that do like odd bits. You know, they're not just
yeah.
like all powered and like good at everything. Like it's like, oh, you're a tailor, so you can like adjust things and change things on people. But then you also have healers that just heal. You know, so it's kind of a wider spectrum of powers instead of just like all encompassing, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and so while Mal is in that fight, literally the conductor is killing who we think is the Sun Summoner, which I knew she wasn't. I was like, there's no way. Like, I don't think she's in that room. When she
Right.
slit the throat, like I was sad for like half a second. I was sad longer than Alina was over that death.
True. I don't think she ever found out. That's what I was talking about earlier. Is like I don't think she ever figured out that her friend died for her, and like
Yeah, I
all
guess
that.
she ran
But
away right after that. Yeah,
yeah, so
that's
like she
probably.
has no idea. But yeah, I don't know. It's she doesn't seem as connected as I would hope she would be. So
Yeah, and then Kerrigan and Alina are about to get down, and then that's when they find out about the assassin.
yeah,
And then so Bagra comes out of left field, opens up a random door, and it's like, oh, hello, like, come with me.
yeah,
And then that's when you learn that Kerrigan is the all powerful, all living, immortal God that he is. And it's like, whoa,
right.
because
He
he's a
is
black heretic.
the Black Heretic.
And then you find out like what happened. Dude, it kind of made me sad. Like I kind of felt for Kerrigan for a little bit,
Right.
like during that flashback
Mm-hmm.
where they take him and they, you know, I mean, they're fleeing at that point. I mean, really, because at that time that Tsar did not like Grisha, just thought they were, you know, witches and they were the enemy. And so he got them all into the underground type deal and made them where they were safe. And then they got found out. And is that the scene or is it the scene before that where he's getting like nailed by arrows?
Yeah, so like right before that, you learn that he's protecting all these Grisha and he's trying to save them. You meet like a healer, I believe, that is kind of his
Oh
lover, I
yeah, because he
suppose.
brings her over there. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so she ends up getting killed in this scenario, and he ends up getting mad and returning back to the Grisha. And then that's when he ends up making his last stand and creating the fold. Because he's trying to do things he doesn't have control over, and he just pushes his powers to the limit and just can't control anything that's happening.
Yeah.
And so you learn that he is the Black Heretic. He created the fold. He is the one that's been causing all these problems. He's taken on all these different names. He's been all these different people across time, and it's just this. It makes him a much deeper and crazier character than you really think he is. And then
Mm-hmm.
everything he's doing is like for a purpose, and like he's really seeking that power and still wanting to do what he wanted to do originally, and like take power and like show that Grisha are the top dog, you know. So
Yeah, which I think he was in love with that healer, because
Right.
it was kind of cool, like how he was like showing himself that he's like, I can't die, because every time they'd shoot an arrow, she would heal him back up
Right.
until they came back around and got her and slaughtered her. And I was like, oh man, I felt for
Yeah.
Kerrigan then. I was like, but then he got hungry with power. I mean, he just
Right. And it came from a
went.
good place, you think? You know, like it's him like trying to protect the Grisha and like wanting them to not be hunted down, right? It's coming from a good place, but then he just loses control and it just gets out of hand.
Yes. Yeah, and so it's very sad. And so
Mhm.
so she heads there, and then she literally like Bagger's like, here's a stockpile of food. No one's gonna find you. Just sit tight. And of course, Alina being Alina's like, you know what? I'm gonna take left instead of right. I'm gonna go do my own path. And then she literally hides in the carriage that Brecker was setting up to kidnap her in.
Yeah.
And Jesper just sees her get into it. He's like, all right, like my job is easier than I thought.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a pretty funny
Right.
aspect or piece to it.
Hmm.
And then so the purse that Alina found, was that just like something that was in there, or was that something she was carrying?
I don't know. I don't think they really specified that, but
'Cause she literally had everything in there that she needed.
yeah, maybe she grabbed that before she left, or she just had it on her. I don't know. But she got away really easy as soon as she got out of the box on the back of the carriage, and she
Way
just
too easy. It kind of
she just
pissed me
kind of
off.
blinds them and runs away. Yeah, and then I just kind of let her go because she was like, "Oh, she's a god. Like she's here to help us. Like I'm here for her now. Like it's my duty, kind of thing." So
Yeah. Um, yeah. So it runs off, and then you beam back. No, because you don't know where Mal's at. So yeah, you're just on the breaker, and well, no, because you go to Bagra, and Bagra's like, ha 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 ha.
right,
Like she's gone
she's
now
like, "Ah, you're an
to her
idiot." Like
son.
yeah, like
Oh
she's
yeah, we also find
gone.
out, yeah, Bagra's a mom.
She's safe. Yeah, right. She's the heretic's mom. They're both
Which I thought
immortal.
was kind of crazy that they were like right next to each other. You know what I mean?
It's
Which granted, like I think Bagra was like trying to get all the geisha or
Grisha.
all the Grisha to turn on on Cregan
Yeah,
to like maybe overthrow him at one point.
yeah. It's weird. It's a weird relationship, right? Because she's helping train all these Grisha, and at the same time, Kerrigan's using them for this evil purpose of taking over the world and like doing all these different things. But they're working together, but not together. And she wants to help him, but doesn't want to help him. It's this really weird
Well, I think it's
relationship.
just like a mom and son. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Like
even though
she
he's
has to
evil, like
help,
still,
even though she doesn't think he's doing the right thing. Yeah,
yeah,
I guess so.
yeah. And then, oh no, and at that time you were with Nina right after that.
Right. Yeah.
and and we find out that Nita got captured obviously in the beginning, and then she was on that boat. So that's why I'm like really thinking that like the Vikings or the Fjordas like really kind of like England, because if they needed a boat, they had to travel by water somewhere.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, which we never really saw a lot of water anywhere, anyways. But
that was the only time we saw water, was that boat,
right.
literally the only time.
Yeah. And that little storyline's interesting because
Like it wasn't needed, but I loved it.
no, it wasn't needed, and maybe it comes into play later on, and it's more important later on in the next season, hopefully, because they put a lot of time to these two characters. It's Nina and Matthias or whatever,
Matthias.
and so like he's the Viking and she's the prisoner that's her heartrender, and she's being taken to be on trial for being a witch, basically, and basically most of these trials end up in the Grisha dying because that's just kind of how things work for the
Well, she
Viking
even
guys.
said how many Grisha have made it through, and he
Right.
just said, and the other guy said none.
And so he's kind of having second thoughts about this, like, oh, maybe our system is flawed, you know, and like he never really says it, but you can see him thinking about it, and the story alludes to it. But then you have the ship crash, and they both survive and get to shore and have to rely on each other multiple times to survive. So
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, because she's able to bring his heart rate up where he heats himself as he paddles her back to shore.
mm-hmm.
And then when they go to the whaleman's hut and he's sitting there, oh, Fjordo women are so modest and so amazing, and you're just so rude and all this stuff, and he hates her so much. That's what I love, that like when it finally clicks and they like start to develop a relationship.
Right.
And even like when they're dancing in the snow and she falls through, because he, like, you could tell he thought for a second,
like, I could just let her go
and I'd be fine, because then I wouldn't be a traitor anymore.
And I also like that relationship because it's on the edge of the knife, right? It's not a like I've given in completely. This is how things are now. Like I trust you. I don't trust you. Like it's I don't know what I think about you yet. And like to each other they're saying like, oh yeah, I trust you, but you can just tell that they're just like one little wind blow one way or the other, and it's just gonna fall at any moment. Which, they get taken away by the whaler guys or whatever, the guys from the bar that are taking him for bounty money or whatever, in order for her to save his life from the Grisha. But later on we see that he's so betrayed by it that he doesn't want to trust her anymore, and he's like, you're worthless, you're nothing to me, like you've turned the tables on me, and now I'm in the spot where you were. Why would you do this to me? All this stuff. So
that part was super sad.
It's a very interesting storyline with no consequence at all.
Yes.
Yet. So unless
it's like literally
next season, hopefully something great. But like right now, it's just like this weird. Yeah, it's a cool storyline, but
the moment she got kidnapped, she didn't matter anymore, because the whole reason was her to get into the palace. And so like they literally did not need to bring her up, but I absolutely love that, like that little side storyline that they brought in. It was pretty awesome. And so, and they're in Ravka, we go back to Alina, they're still in kind of like Ravka territory, and her being a Shu, like that's the first time you really see like the hatred for the Shu.
Right.
Like, your money's not good here, get out here. They wouldn't talk to her, nothing, because they didn't know she was Sun Summoner, because she was trying to hide. So her being the Shu, they didn't really care for her. And
yeah, even the guy that like escaped from, the guy thinks she had some phosphorus thing to blind him while she was running away, but it was powers. And he was like, oh, some Shu lady was like using phosphorus against me to get away, So
yeah, exactly.
Because he wouldn't even believe it because he was just so racist about it,
Yes, absolutely. Well, not necessarily racist. They're at war with each other.
Oh yeah, so, but like I think it is racist, or like it's a hatred of a different people, So
yeah.
But
and then so she ends up running, and then the supposedly only human has no extra powers, Tracker, finds her out of nowhere, which I really think Mal has powers. I really do.
Because he never got tested either.
Yes. But like they don't have people like that. And same thing with
right, and
the rest of the crew.
Which like it's a weird thing, because like what do they track on these people to say they're Grisha or not? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but like really, how do you know that there's not
like more types,
different levels, or different types? Also, like maybe it doesn't show up the same way in this test as it would for something else, right? Like, so there's like the gunslinger, the blade, and the tracker, right? Like all three of them are basically their own thing. I even think Wrecker even could be something, because he's a very Sherlock Holmesy character. Like he knows everything that's happening around him very, very well, and he's doing a very good job of understanding what's going to happen and knowing what next move to make. And
he's always two steps ahead.
He's more of a conductor than I think the conductor even was, right? Like he's more conducting the situations and being in
the fact they set the trap on the chariot and all that stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. Yep, I went ahead and rigged our alarm.
It immediately goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome. And And so they go for the White Stag. Um, and then Brecker and the crew are like, you know what, screw this, we're out. And they're going to go take the conductor's train back to the Void. And then I guess Cregan then becomes a main storyline at that point that's like separated from everything else. Um, he finds them. He finds Brecker, which again, Brecker is the guy that has a gimp leg. Like he's not like anything. And then you have Kurgan, who is this immortal shadow god. And so they wanted to take Grisha on separately. And it was kind of like a Mortal Kombat type style. You know, they all had their own little battle zones. And Anesh, she doesn't want to kill. She's got like that a whole Batman type personality with her knives and stuff that she doesn't want to kill, and you can tell when she does kill, like it screws with her pretty hard.
Before, yeah.
And the sad part is that she was saving Brecker on the very first time that she's killed, and it was an Inferni, and then they go to the scene, and then you find out like the Inferni had a sister who was also an Inferni.
Yep.
And she's like, "That's my brother you killed," and like started making some weird screech sounds, and like ran after her. Yeah. It was weird, and killed her. And then Jesper had like the coolest, I think, fight scene out of all of them.
Oh yeah.
Really because he goes up against a Heartrender, and then he goes in and he's through all those capes, which the Heartrender should know exactly where he's at because of the heartbeat. Like there should be, like he should be the one that can see through the cloth. And you know what I mean?
I think he can feel him in there, but I don't think he can feel where he is. You can kind of feel like the area of like what direction he's in. But like the fact that Jesper could like hit a bullet off of like 5 different objects and hit him in the same spot on his bulletproof jacket.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
The fabricators making those.
That's a wild thing, right? Like,
yeah,
this time era, I guess, is.
Well, it's the fabricators. They came up with the technology.
Yeah. But like he hits the same spot on this guy's jacket to keep making it harder and harder for him to like ignore this pain that's hitting him, you know.
And yeah, because even though it doesn't kill him, it's right. hitting him. Like
it's getting weaker and weaker in that spot, and every time it hits it, it's gonna hurt him more because if you get a shot in a bulletproof vest, it's still gonna knock the wind out of you. You know. It's
yeah.
So this guy's getting shot in the same spot, so it's really, really, really hurting him.
Yeah, I shot it through the cloth, shot off that bell thing. I mean, he was like, that's why I think he's something as well, because he literally didn't see him. He shot through cloth to kill this, or not kill him, but well, yeah, he ends up killing him. So
later on, but he doesn't kill him because there's a kid there, and he doesn't want to kill him in front of the kid. So
professionals got standards, bro. And so ends up like I think that scene because it was like cat and mouse because literally if that Heartrender sees him once, he's dead because he can slow his heart down and kill him. Oh yeah, he doesn't kill him in that scene. I remember where he kills him. Yeah, you're right. And then Anesh, you know, you don't see her kill her, but she comes back and says that she's no longer there or no longer with us or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you see Brecker, who is this limp man, and gets in front of Kurgan and throws the flashbang, which combats his shadow. Which I think magic shadow versus a flashbang should just cut right through it. Because then he holds up his cane made of gold, I assume, or some kind of metal, and it like flicks off, and he's able to run off, save his life. He even I think hit him a few times with the cane, right? Or no?
I don't remember. But it is a weird thing that like he just dropped his flashbang kind of thing and then disappears, you know. But I mean, it worked, I guess, you know. So
yeah, and at that point you find another fabricator, which that is the Durast or Duralast, right? Is it Durast? Because he's the one that's like, oh, the tailor put an iridium ring on her. I can track her within a mile because I can sense the iridium. So like that's what another fabricator can do. Which, you know, I think the fabricators are like the most diverse of all the other ones. Because you know what I mean? All the Heartrenders do the same thing. All the Inferni do the same thing. But like the fabricators, you have some that make those gloves that helped out. You had the locksmith. You had the person that can find the iridium. You know what I mean? Like they're super, and that's what even Kurgan says, you know, every single time I turn around, you fabricators become more and more useful. which is kind of cool. Um, and so they ended up following her to the White Stag,
Mm-hmm.
which then more people get killed, and she doesn't care about.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of cool that you can see that her like light dome, like she can also like
She can
make a
use light in
protective
different
shield.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah, she can use the light as a shield. And so Mel gets pretty screwed up, which again, Mel has to be a Grisha because you know how many broken bones he has throughout this entire series and just like walks
He
like
gets
2 minutes
shot
later.
and stabbed multiple times, and he's in lots of fights and is just on the edge of his life lots of times. But in that scene, he's also like, you gotta choose. It's either the stag or him. It's Mal or the stag, And she chooses Mal, and he does have his healer like work on him a little bit and make sure he's not dying. But at the same time, she loses the stag, and so then
Yeah.
Kerrigan has the tinkerer guy put together his stuff and fabricate a new way to connect them power wise. And so he has control over her powers completely at this point because they have these
Yeah.
infused antlers in their hands, and she's got one around her collarbone. So it's
Almost like shackles, like you know what I mean? Like it's
right.
definitely like a slave.
Yeah.
That's what I thought when I saw that. I was very like, oh wow. Like
Yeah.
that's a and so she can't do it without him either. Like she can't
Mm-hmm.
he
He's
like if she tries, he can squash it
yeah.
immediately and
Yep.
not let her do
He's
anything.
he's completely in control at this point. She can't do anything.
Which I thought the goat part kind of weirded me out because like why did the goat have a bullet?
I think it was
Did you
just
notice
like
that?
it was just a little uh it's just a little thing to keep it from like it's your goat. It's like your way of signifying that that's your goat. Maybe I don't know, kind of like a collar.
Goats are held in high regard in
I
this.
don't know. Yeah, there are a lot of goats, strangely, but
Which I thought was cool. Like he was able to hit the bullet and break
mm-hmm.
free.
Yeah, it was cool.
And
Cool scene.
then okay, so after that, then it flashes over um, to the crew, Brecker and Jesper and Ish. And I thought it was so cool that they're sitting there, they're laying there, they're looking, and they see the two soldiers looking over, and that's when Jesper's like, you're kind of a lot like the conductor, like the stuff that the ideas and plans and all that stuff that you come with. And Brecker, I think, says like he's not like the conductor. I think is that how that goes,
I don't
or
remember.
something to that effect. And then the soldier opens up the door, and it's booby trapped, just like he had the carriage booby trapped. And he's like, "Oh, I guess it's a little too early to look at the irony in that." Because I think Brecker just went on a whole tangent on how he wasn't like the conductor, and then the conductor rigged the train to blow.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
Just like Brecker reigned the caravan to blow.
Mm.
Which I thought was pretty funny how Jesper was like, "Oh, a little too soon to see the irony in that." Um, which at that point then brings the story back together because there's only one way for everybody to get across.
Yep.
And so they end up kidnapping that one high-ranking countryman because
Right.
so Kerrigan invited all these people from different regions, the Shu, the Fjord, and all the other countries that aren't really ever talked about, to take the maiden voyage to destroy the void, is what everyone thinks anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jesper kidnaps that guy and puts on his clothes and gets his passport and his papers so then they can get on the ship. Which
Right.
the whole time Jesper is like, all these people want to kill us, right? Brecker's like, we're fine, we're fine, we're fine.
Right.
And so they hide in the stowaways. Mel somehow gets into the stowaway part as well. So literally all of our main characters are now brought back again,
Yep.
which I think it's so cool. Like the way the story is built is just amazing because they all have these different stories. They intertwine and then they break off and then they intertwine again, then they break off. It's very seamless.
Mm-hmm.
Like how
Right.
everything goes together. Like it's very like, they bridge it together very well, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so they get on that ship and then you see the demons again, which that's the first time you see the wind people.
Well,
Which what are they called? The
yeah.
squallers.
Yeah. So like they're used for like getting across with the sails, anyways. So you see them in the very beginning, and then they're not around much, and then you see them at the end there to use it to get across again. But there's like
Yeah, which I
one
thought
that's
was
like
cool.
been around since the very beginning, and she's there also, and she also kind of changes alliances midway through this voyage. She's introduced when Mal goes to a tent to steal some food for her, for Alina. But so like all these characters, like you said, are on this boat together, and it's just this crazy conglomerate of people. And so like Brecker's crew is below trying to figure out when to strike and when to go on and take on these guys above, right? And so they find Mal and they're like, well, if he's not with them, he's with us. He's with our crew now. And so like just like that, he's with them.
Yeah, if you're not with
Um
us, if you're not against us, you're with us.
yeah, and so then at that point, Jesper and Mal go above and they're like, we're doing it now, we're doing this. Like it's getting too far. Like because at this point, like they've made a tunnel through the fold with
No, they
this.
haven't made the tunnel yet, have they?
Yeah, they did. And so like
Okay.
he's shown his powers that he can do this, and that there's this tunnel going through there now. And so basically, like he's saying, I could destroy the fold, but I'm not going to because I want to use this as for me. And he made this whole speech about how like his country is going to be in power, the Grisha are going to be in power, and all these other countries don't have anything to do about it because they can't do anything about it. So
Yeah. And I think, it was cool because you saw like some of the dead bodies like go through, I mean, not bodies, but like they're the demons that were like dead, like through because they were inside the tunnel when it came through.
mm-hmm.
And it like really tricked for him when he saw the original altar, like where he like hit the void in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I thought that was a pretty cool aspect that they included that in. And then that's when you like, I think you see the road markers in the beginning, but you really see them obviously when the tunnel like opens them up, so you know how far you are to the other side,
Mm-hmm.
which was pretty cool and unique. And so yeah, so you have all these people, and they're all like, it was almost like Game of Thrones, like right before the battle, the great battle, how they go in the tunnel and they're all telling their stories, like because how the squaller's like, I have family over there, and then Mal and them are talking about, what I mean. It's just kind of like a right before the big fight. They're all kind of just sitting there like telling their stories and
Right.
figuring stuff out and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And so
And
right after
then
he gives that speech, and then he decides to push the fold onto that other side there where that town is, and just basically
slaughter them.
overtake it with the fold and just kill everybody there. And it's
And you
just
hear the screaming and all that stuff because they didn't
it's
die.
a
They didn't die right away.
crazy moment. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you see that squalor just like see all of her people die, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what the crazy part was. And then that's when Brecker's crew jumps up, and it's a big old fight scene. And that's what I liked about it is because you get thrown off the boat, and then you can tell that it's like the land, because you almost forget because you're in the ship part
Right.
that's
Yep.
sand on both sides. And so the fact that like you see them fighting it out and duking it out, and then they were too close to the barrier, some of those guys got grabbed, because they were able to claw it out and take them with them, and the big old fight scene happens, and
Mm-hmm.
then pretty much everyone is down on their luck, about to die. And Alina, as she always is, she goes through that little weird trance type deal where she sees the stag in the middle of all of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then knocks out the connecting bone, I guess.
Yeah. With a knife.
Um, yeah. No, the connecting bone in Kirigan's hand.
Yeah, with a knife.
Oh yeah, with the knife. I thought you said knocked out the knife. I
Yeah.
apologize. And then that kind of brings her back, and then she like absorbs the
Yeah.
shackle into her, and then becomes like the all powerful, because even though, and that's what the tells are always were, is that whenever Grisha killed him, got the superpower.
Right.
But in reality, whoever deserves
It's like chosen.
the, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then she becomes the all powerful and just starts slaying.
Right.
Because at that point, because Kirigan knew he was going to lose, so at that point he started to reduce the tunnel just to go around him, so that everyone else would start getting slaughtered by by these demons and whatnot, and then she was able to build that tunnel and rebuild the tunnel, and I don't know, she wasn't able to save the city, was she?
No, because they built the tunnel and got out basically, and so
Yeah,
like Kieran and Mal are off the ship, and then they're fighting, and then eventually Kieran gets grabbed by the creatures and taken away, and you don't see him again until the very, very end. You see him for a second.
yeah,
He steps out of the fold. Really, really
which I
messed
thought
up,
was pretty awesome.
but he
And then he can
steps
bring the
out.
demons out of the fold too.
Right, the demons are following him out of the fold and not being destroyed by the light. So that's going to be a very interesting part. The
It
next
was
season
almost like he became one with the demons. Like it was meant for him this whole time.
to
Like
do
if he
that.
would have ever gone in, he would have
Right.
known.
Yeah.
And so I think season 2 is going to be amazing. Like I really do. Like this was such an amazing show. Like this was such a great, great show. And then
But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
the characters get out and they talk and they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna go different ways, like, and basically it's kind of a parting ways for a lot of people. One of them's gonna go back into the fold to try and find her family, which is a whole different task, and
yeah.
then they're gonna go try and find some allies. It sounds like, and then go back to the part of the city if it's still there and figure out their fate there. So I mean, everyone's kind of going their separate ways for now, but I think there'll be a meetup again at some point.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the Sun Summoner. Can gather the sun, destroy things, control the sunlight, do whatever she wants. We have the Heart Render who can control heart, life, whatever that, truthness and all that stuff. We have the Healer that can sit there and heal all wounds. We have the Tather that can fix people. The Squaller that can control storms and do that stuff. And then the Inferni that controls methane, hydrogen, and we have the Duras that control the steel and all that stuff. So out of all of that, I'll even throw in Jesper, Anisia's powers, or Nisha's powers, and Brecker's. Out of all those people and Mel's powers, who would you be?
It's a fair question. I don't know. Fabricator's really cool, right?
Or the Darkling too. We can throw the Darkling in there.
Darkling, yeah. I mean, I think it'd probably either be like a fabricator or one of like the ones that aren't technically a power, right? Like the Jesper and Nej and
Okay, let's separate this. What Grisha would you be and what non-Grisha power would you be?
I'd probably go for fabricator. I think that's the coolest one. Because it's a power without being a power at the same time, And then maybe Jesper. I think his character is really cool too.
Okay. So I really think this is really hard. I thought I was going to be able to come up with it before you finished. Because I feel like the Sun Summoner and the Darkling is way too powerful. I don't want to be them.
Right.
Squaller, really, I could care less about. The Inferni is kind of cool, but you have to be pretty much all destruction. Duras, I was going to pick the Duras, but then, you kind of chose them instead of me. So cool, whatever. Heart Render. I think the Heart Render would be
Heart Render's cool.
Probably cool because you can keep people warm. You can, slow people, knock people out, all that stuff. I think the Heart Render is definitely. I think I would choose them. I would choose the Heart Render, and then for non-Grisha, I'd also want to be Mel because he can heal pretty fast and all that stuff. He can track. He can get his way through. I think that would be mine. I think I'd like to be the Heart Render, and I'd be the
Tracker.
I'd be Mel. Tracker.
Yeah, I mean,
so this is cool. Oh yeah, they always say the Saints, the Saints, the Saints, the Saints.
Right. Yeah.
Which I assume those are like the Grisha at the same time. But yeah, so this is pretty cool. Netflix just dumped this one. I think I saw something about them hopefully being renewed for the second season. I really was hoping, when we watched in this and we started it and all that stuff, and I was like, man, this would be like Netflix's Game of Thrones. Like there's something, there's definitely like storylines that they could build from it. But then I went back and it's a trilogy. Like it's just 3 books, no more, no less. But again, they make a lot out of Lord of the Rings, and that was just 3 books. So maybe.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm hoping this lasts more than 3 seasons, because from what I read, the first season and the first book are pretty much the same. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily the show's the same as a book, but it's
Right.
covers, you know. So I hope it's more than 3 seasons. I really do. I think this would be such a great. I
Yeah.
wish it was more than 8
I
episodes. 10
mean,
episodes would have been.
they could pull a Harry Potter and like split the last one into 2 or split the next one into 2, so it's
Yeah.
possible to get like, I think max 5 seasons, right? Like very, very
Yeah.
maximum level.
And they might have done that with the first season because they didn't know if it would take off or not. So they're like, you know
You
what, we're
never
just gonna
know.
do the first book.
It was a very, I would see that as an ending to a book though, with him like thinking that the heretic's destroyed and
Yeah.
then he comes back from the fold. So I don't know, but without reading the book, I wouldn't have known. So
Right. Exactly. Which, yeah, I downloaded those on Audible, and which you can listen to us there.
yep.
Um, so I cannot wait. I drive a lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and listen to that first book and see
Mhm.
how different it is and all that
Right,
stuff.
yeah, definitely.
We at this point, you know, we have our YouTube channel, we have our podcast, we have our Facebook page.
Mhm.
So really, I mean, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because you know, every time that we come up with an episode, sometimes we come out with them on Mondays, Thursday, Fridays. We're kind of scatterbrained right now. It just depends on when the new movie's coming out or the new show's coming out
Right.
is when we're dropping it. So hitting that bell notification on YouTube would kind of let you know when we're making up another one. Um, and then we are on wherever you see podcasts. So I do it through iTunes and you do it through Spotify.
Yep.
I think we have Audible, we have Pandora, we have, I mean, literally everywhere. Like
Yeah.
anywhere that you listen to at the Google Play Store, we're on there. Um,
Yep.
and then we also have our Facebook page, which we upload this videos just like we would with YouTube. But with that, we do a little bit more interactions. Like we'll post like just different trailers that we're excited for coming up and whatnot. So it'd be also kind of a cool thing to go ahead and follow us on Facebook just to
Yeah.
see where we're at and see what we're doing.
You can
Um,
comment and let us know if you have something you want us to see or talk about, and
yeah,
we'll probably jump on it and see what we think. Give you our take.
yeah. But you know, I think that wraps it up for this week.
Yep. Tune in next week and we'll spoil something new.